Brendan from B&D.
It'll be like September 12th. All right, everyone. Good to see you. Sorry, everybody. All right, everyone. There you go. Everyone. Okay.
Everyone.
Good to see you all here today. In the way of announcements, just a reminder that the semester is wrapping up. This is our third to last normal meeting. By which I mean we actually have like a guest speaker come in and give a talk. After that, we're going to have end of the year party on May 2nd. It's just going to be fun, kind of games and stuff. Probably have pizza or some kind of food. It won't be in this room. I don't know which room. Kenneth, it was.
Oh,
did you get the room for?
I forgot SSA 14 something.
Okay.
So that's on the
Somewhere on the 4th floor of the SSA.
Where we're actually allowed to have food.
Yes, a place where we are allowed to have food, unlike this.
We're not allowed to have food. We're not just.
That was the sacrifice we had to make.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Hello, welcome.
Hello. So there is that. Also, we are just about getting our new reasonable pay T-shirts finalized. Those are not ready to like buy or anything yet. They still have to be delivered, but we should be unveiling them at some point before the end of the semester. Be on the lookout for that. So that's about all.
I guess I could introduce Raj Sebastian, now doctor. He recently completed his PhD, and he's an awesome guy, great heart and mind. He's been in India training pastors there. So we're really thrilled and pleased to be able to have you join us, Raj, and hear about Buddhism tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be back here. I can recognize some phrases from my last visit. So today, I'm going to talk on Buddhism, which I haven't done on this campus. So let's learn together. Let's look at it together. And it's a different religion, but I grew up having neighbors and friends who follow this religion. And we have people here from India who follow the religion. Friends who are Buddhist too. In fact, when I went to a seminary in North India, we had a campus right across our boundary wall. It was a Buddhist monastery of Tibetan Buddhism, which is called Vajrayana Buddhism. So, interesting stuff. All right, let's start a little bit, some interesting facts. This is one of the oldest world religions. It has become a world religion, though it began in the East, spread to different countries. So many countries actually follow Buddhism now. It's also the first missionary religion when you think about sending out people to convert others. They sent missionaries to Japan. Initially, they went to Tibet and probably crossed to China too, and other countries, Thailand, Vietnam, and all. So, first mission religion. So even before Christianity started sending missionaries, they were missionaries.
Can I ask, can everyone hear okay? Is it a little bit too quiet, or you're fine?
Be louder? Okay.
Maybe just a tiny bit
Might be a little
louder.
quiet for the live stream.
Yeah.
So the place of origin, now if you ask an Indian, they are proud about Buddhism. They claim to be in India, but if you talk to a Nepali, it's a different story. They claim Buddha was actually a Nepali, born in Nepal. Now the place, Lumbini, is currently in Nepal. It's possible that in the past it was part of India, because when you think of India, I tell people, don't think of the current when you talk about the past, right? When you think of the past India, think of Africa. Many countries, so it was one of the countries in which Gautama was born, and he was actually a prince. So he was born in a country in the Indian subcontinent, which used to be part of Nepal and India, depending on when it was. Sometimes there were areas which was ruled by Nepalese king in India, and the other way too. When we think about followers, it has 376 million followers, and the US has 1.5 million. Now, talking about the life of Buddha or Gautama, Siddhartha Gautama, the founder of the religion, He lived in the 6th century BC, so we are talking about almost 560 plus years before Christ, and he died in the year 483 BC. So we are talking about 6th century, 5th century BC. Now, based on his own identification after he claimed that he received an enlightenment, so he claimed that he is one of the Buddhas. So there are many Buddhas who achieved that Buddhahood, and once you achieve that status, you are called a Buddha. So his birth was in a royal family in northern part of India or southern part of Nepal, currently in Nepal in Lumbini. So his mother died at the age of 7 days, and then he was raised by his father and his aunt. And according to the tradition, he was prevented from seeing anything that was painful, anything that's evil, anything that had suffering. So he was brought up in a situation where he had only pleasures, only good things, no pain. I don't know in reality how that is possible, because no matter how good family you have, you are bound to get sick, and you are bound to hear of at least something happening to the people that take care of you. But that's the story. So his parents arranged that kind of a lifestyle, and he got married, and he had a child, and even after having a child, he never heard of pain from his wife.
Yeah, that's hard to believe as well.
So there is something mysterious there. So religious and historical background of Gautama. Now you have to understand, any religion, you take any world religion, any religion anywhere in the world, there is no way you can disconnect a religion from its historical roots and cultural roots. Okay, you might find it is philosophically kind of very different, but you will see some connections, and you will see the same thing happening with Buddhism. There's a big disconnect, and there's a great connection to the past too. So the one disconnection is the revolt against priestly religions that's happening all over the world. When I say all over the world, the religious world, okay, especially East is known for religions, developing so many world religions, the Abrahamic religion. It all began in the East, right? Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Zoroastrianism, Hinduism, Buddhism, they are all from the East, right? So when we talk about religious world, we are talking about that world. So in the East, there was a movement, a philosophical movement against priestly religion. So we see Zoroastrianism kind of teaching in the around the same time in the 7th century BC that there's only one God and things like that. And then we see in China there's something interesting going on. In China there is a non-priestly movement too. So they are becoming non-priestly, and then this is happening in India also. We have this in the 6th century with Buddhism, and then we have in the 5th century another religion called Jainism, which began in India, which is also non-priestly. So they are trying to get rid of this priestly idea, and where you have to sacrifice and things like that. So religions are not only becoming non-priestly, they are also becoming non-sacrificial. Okay, so there is kind of that kind of advancement in thinking of religion, that an idea that God doesn't need flesh and blood and sacrifices and offerings and things like that. Okay. So if he doesn't need that, then we don't need priests too. Okay, so this is happening, and we'll come back to that. So there is a kind of revolt against this priestly religion in different parts, including in India, and so this is called a non-Brahminic religion. So in India we have Hinduism that kind of incorporated all kinds of religious thoughts in that subcontinent. But this one is non-Brahminic, which means the Brahmins are not at the head of the religion. They don't have priests. They have temples, which we call monasteries and Buddhist temples, but they don't have priests there. So Gautama, before this happened, before he begins, on his first outing into the real world, from this controlled world, he is now into this real world. And on his first day, he sees a man who was about to die. So he's seeing possible death there. And then on the second day, he sees a man with a deadly disease. We don't know what the disease is, but another one who is suffering with a sickness and is about to die. And then a funeral procession on the third day. So, he sees someone is already dead, and people are crying and taking that body for burial. And then he sees a monk who was serene, was very peaceful. He didn't have anything, but he had everything in the sense of peace and understanding and things like that. So he's kind of evaluating these things now, seeing the real world. The experience troubled the heart of Gautama. As a young man now in his 30s, he's shocked by this experience of pain, suffering, and death. So he wanted to find out a solution to the problem of suffering. Now, this is what we talked about when we talked about Hinduism. In Hinduism, there was no solution to the problem of suffering. It didn't actually address the problem of suffering. Now, when we study worldviews, we know that this is a major question. Why is there suffering? That's a major worldview question. Why is it like this? What's wrong with the world? Why do we have pain? Why there is evil? So, in Buddhism, at that time, no one really addressed that question because there was wars even between gods. God, they always have weapons, so they are fighting even between themselves. And so nobody really addressed why did it all start? What did go wrong with the world? So Buddha is now trying to find out where is the solution. If it is not in Hinduism, he wanted to find a solution. So disgusted with the pleasure that he was having in his palace, so his life at one end, which is very good, very pleasureful, and he leaves that, and then he leaves wandering, and he leaves his wife and his child, and he goes in pursuit of spiritual enlightenment through a life of austerity. Now, back to the world connection, okay? Something is happening in China at the same time in the 6th century. There's a man called Lao Tzu. Now, a real man, but there's also a lot of tradition, just like Buddha's case. That like Buddha didn't see any evil until he was like 30 plus years and all. So there is this story about Lao Tzu that he was born with all wisdom. Because he was born with all wisdom, he couldn't be a child, so he was born at the age of 72. Okay? Don't ask questions when you hear a story, right? That's what we tell in India. So he was, his date is like around 604 BCC, around the same time, so it's a little bit before Buddha. So Buddha is in 6th century, 500 plus years. So this is happening, the late 7th century BC. So he's in 6th century BC. So they believe that this man again became famous for his teaching, and his teaching in China is known as Wu Wei. Okay, Wu Wei. You actually will see some restaurants named Wu Wei. If someone is here from China, you know that, right? Wu Wei is a famous Chinese term for quietism, which means do as little as possible. So it applies to everything. Okay, do as so action only do what is necessary. When you eat only what is necessary. When you speak, only say what is necessary. Okay, that's the kind of teaching he made popular. He had followers. It's part of the Chinese traditional religion, Taoism and all. So he became popular, and they believe that he actually went to India and taught Buddha what Buddha claimed to be, enlightenment. Okay, now this is what they believe. Okay, Buddhists will not accept that. Okay, but you see something is happening in China too. The Lao Tzu's teaching in China was also non-priestly. He had no role for priests in the religion. So you are seeing this development happening in Middle East with Zoroastrianism in 7th century, later 7th century in China, and then now it's in India. Now the trade route between India and China was well known. It's called the Silk trade route, and there used to be good trade between India and China. So ideologies, were always passed. Okay? So after he claimed that he received his enlightenment. Buddha, he converted his wife. So his wife was left in the palace, of course. So when he came and preached, his wife became a disciple, and she was ordained as the first nun in the Buddhist, system. So nuns are allowed in Buddhist system, and his son also became a follower and disciple of Buddhism, and also his half brother Ananda became a disciple. So after Buddha died, it's believed that Ananda, helped in putting his his teachings into writing. So at the end of his life, it's believed that he gave a final sermon on dying, and then died or ended nirvana. Okay. Now we will talk about nirvana later on. So the main teachings of Buddha. First one, just like the concept of quietism, do as little as possible, he taught the concept of middle way. Okay. Now you see the same thing happening in China also. After Laozi, there was another teacher that who came within Taoism. He taught the same thing called the middle way. Okay, you cannot be on this extreme or that extreme. So but again, this is very closer to the quietism. Do as little as or the Wu Wei principle. So then he said the cause of suffering. Remember he was searching for a solution to the problem of suffering. Okay, so the cause of suffering, according to his teaching or his discovery, is the attachment of attachment to physical life. Okay, so you will have attachment to different things in this world, right? So let's say if you are a puppy, you are attached to that puppy. So what happens when the puppy dies? You have pain in your heart, right? Emotional pain, you have grief, right? Now what if you don't have attachment? No grief, right? So he said the problem is your attachment. So the only way to get them out of this problem is having no attachment. So the cessation of suffering is possible by giving up all attachment. Remember, he left his family, right? So what if you have a wife? What if you have a parents to whom you are attached? When they die, you have grief. You have a good house. What happens when you are attached to your house? Caught on fire one day. When you're crying, I lost my property. I don't have insurance probably in those days. So attachment is the problem according to him. So, okay, he is finding the cause now. Now, he also taught that nothing is permanent. Okay, this is important. Keep that in mind. Nothing is permanent. Everything is changing. Everything is constantly changing. This world we see is also changing. There will be a new world one day. So then teachings on rebirth. Now remember, I told you there is no way you can kind of totally disconnect from the past and your culture. You see this both in Buddhism and Jainism that came later on in India. Okay, both religions are actually called atheistic. Okay, they don't teach anything about God. Just like Wu Wei and Confucianism in China, there's nothing about God, no God talks in these religions. But at the same time, they inherited the Hindu teachings that are in Vedas, in Vedic writings, about rebirth. When we say rebirth, we are not talking about the rebirth of the being born again experience in Christianity. Okay, we are talking about being you are coming back to this world and you are taking birth again. Your soul is coming back again and taking shape of something else. That's the concept of rebirth. So karma and attachment lead to rebirth. So you live in this world and you have karma, you have bad karma, you have good karma. The more bad karma you are more bound to come back. And your birth will depend on what kind of karma you had in this life. So for example, if you kicked a dog, possibly you will be born as a dog in your next life and get kicked. Okay, that's karma, right? For what you did. So that's a never-ending cycle. So if everything is suffering, if suffering is all what you have in this world, how do you then end this suffering? The only possibility to end suffering is by ending your life, in the sense of you don't come back to this life. Because according to Buddhism, suffering is universal, right? Suffering is all what is there. There is nothing good. All what is there is suffering. So how you can end it? By ending this rebirth. So attaining knowledge and cessation of attachment lead to freedom from cycle of rebirth and suffering. So he said there is a way you can get away from this rebirth. But if you're going to take rebirth, you are going to suffer. There's no way to escape suffering because suffering is universal. Now the fading away of craving resulted in detachment, extinction, and nirvana. So according to Buddhist teaching, nirvana is, this is interesting again, okay? Read this definition. Nirvana is not nothing or non-being, but neither is it anything that is being. It is beyond our categories of existence or thought. What a thought that is, right? So sometimes, people can put these crazy ideas or, statements and, say these are like beyond our thought. Well, if it's beyond our thought, what are we talking about? I mean, yeah, sounds highly, intellectual and all. but it's nothing or non-being, neither is it anything. I mean, if it's not anything, how can it not be nothing? I mean, so those kind of things you find in almost all religions, especially the Vedic religions. So the four universal truths, that are kind of, based on all what we talked about thus far, put together, it goes like this. So this is called the four noble truths of Buddhism, okay? And these are called also universal truths. The first one is, to live is to suffer. So if you're going to live, if you're coming to this world, that means you are going to suffer. There is no way to escape it. There is suffering. So this is the fundamental principle, okay? We are talking about the first principle here of Buddhism. You see the connection now with the question of suffering, the question of pain, the worldview question. The whole religion, and when we come to Jainism also, we say the same. The whole religion is built on this one issue, one worldview question, the problem of suffering. Why do we have suffering? How do we get away with it? Okay? So, to live is to suffer. And what does that mean? When we think about again real life, is our life all suffering? Is that all what it is? Or is there something more than that? Is there some joy when we have fellowship, when we have friends, we have family? Aren't those good things too? Of course we are suffering, but aren't they good things? But in Buddhism, we couldn't really find anything good. Okay? So there's no exception, it's universal. The cause of suffering, as I said, is attachment, right? Two things, attachment and desires, okay? So when you have desire, same problem. You desire something, when you lose it, you have pain, grief. So your cause of suffering is attachment or desire. Now, cessation of suffering is possible only through the elimination of attachment or desire. So when you reach a status where you have no attachment and no desire, then you will have no suffering. That's what that status is called nirvana. Okay, when you have reached that status. So that's why in Buddhism, Buddha reached that status where he had no attachment and no desires and entered into nirvana. Now you see people going down and bowing before a Buddha and things like that. If you go to a Buddhist temple, monastery and all, they don't really pray to Buddha. Some people do, because of popular Buddhism and all, just like in some popular Christianity, you find people praying to people. So do you know why they don't pray to Buddha? Because
It doesn't exist anymore,
right? He has no attachment. He's not going to be involved with you. He's in nirvana, which is an existence and non-existence. So but the principle is, if he's going to be involved in your life, he's attached with you, and he has gone beyond that status. Okay, so he's not going to be involved. So that's the status. So help for Buddhists don't come from Buddha, but the teachings help. See, the principles help. Okay, Buddha doesn't help himself because he's not going to be involved. So cessation of attachment can be achieved by following the Eightfold Path. So how do you get to this status? Follow these right views. These are called the Noble Eightfold Path, the eight paths. Okay, right view. Now, right view is not having having a biblical view like we talk about, the world view. Okay, that's not what they talk about. What they're talking about, the four universal truths that we already learned. So if you believe that, that's when you have the right view. Okay, so right intention, willing to achieve enlightenment. So just like Buddha had enlightenment, you are willing to achieve that. Right speech, see, saying all that is and only what is required. See the Wu Wei principle, the quietism principle. So right action, doing all that is and only what is required. See, is basically from Laozi. Okay, I don't know how. Like I said, there was this trade route, and basically you have the same teaching in China and India now. So right action, doing all that is and only what is required. Right livelihood, become a monk. The right way to live is as a monk, and you live by begging. Okay? Because otherwise, when you are working, you have an attachment, you have a desire for a reward, an income. Yes, please.
So the ideal world, according to Buddhism, has everyone very quickly starving because no one is living as a farmer, everyone is living as a monk.
Well, if you think starving is going to be a problem, all right. and again, that's idealism doesn't happen, right? Yeah, good point though. That can happen. Keep that in mind. We'll come back to that and connect with something else. right effort, directing one's energy properly, right mindfulness, meditating properly. So when a monk is not doing working, not begging, he's actually supposed to meditate. Okay, if he's not helping in the temple, monastery, and if he's not begging, he's supposed to be meditating. That's for monks. Normal people are allowed to work by the way. Right concentration, maintaining continuous focus. So you have to keep this focus, otherwise you will not be able to get to this nirvana status. Now, branches and beliefs. So fundamental beliefs, like we told about the four noble principles, they are same for all branches. Okay, if you are a Buddhist, you have to accept those four principles. Other beliefs and practices differ based on what branch you follow. Yes, please.
What is the focus in general? Remain focused was the last step to becoming. Sorry, could you? Yeah. Maintaining continuous focus. What exactly are?
Following all these 7 steps continuously. You don't follow for a couple of days and give up.
Okay. Okay.
And so, what happens after the death of Buddhism? So the first council happens. Okay, it happens soon after the death of Buddha. Followers collected the sayings of Buddha and put them together into 3 baskets. It's called Tripitaka. So they are like the canon of conservative Buddhism. And the second council happens a century after the first council. Okay, exactly 1 century after. And by this time, they have 18 plus schools or branches of Buddhism now, different types. See, Buddhism has spread to different countries by this time, and you have to think, even within India, when we say in India, it's different countries in those days, right? So it has spread to different countries within India, Nepal, Bhutan, Tibet, and possibly some other countries, and they are all different in different places. Yes, please.
Do Buddhists have a concept of heresy?
Uh,
Like the way we would have a concept of heresy?
No, I don't think I haven't heard of, because Buddhism can be, the current status of Buddhism is like you can believe anything you want, kind of thing. So, see, we are talking about 1 century after Buddha. You have 18 schools. That means they have different teachings, right? So, the heresy for them will be maybe like saying Buddha is, he was, what he told was wrong. That will be our meeting. So 2 approach to requirements on monks and representatives on laity emerged. So out of these 18 groups, now they are trying to find a consensus, and then 2 groups emerged from that. And so there was this split that happened after the second council, and 2 main groups emerged. They are called Theravada or Hinayana and Mahayana. So the Theravada or Hinayana means small raft, and Mahayana, Maha means big, from India, right? Maha means big, so the big group. So the small group was focused on monks. So according to them, only monks can achieve nirvana. Okay? So in order to achieve nirvana, you have to be a monk. It's like in Hinduism, if you want to achieve, in Hinduism, you have a concept of moksha. To achieve moksha, you have to be born as a Brahmin caste person, actually. Okay? So in that way, this is now, you have to be a monk, because otherwise you are attached. As long as you are attached, you cannot have nirvana, right? So the Mahayana group focused on the general people also, and they said, well, there is a way for the general people also. A couple of things. So Theravada, the small group said, okay, you have to be a monk to achieve nirvana, but you can earn merits in this life by helping monks. So when you donate, food to the monks who are begging, you are earning merits. When you are, building a temple or providing for the maintenance of a monastery, you are earning merits for your next life, and maybe in the next life you can be a monk and achieve nirvana. Okay, that's why you see, go to these Buddhist countries, you will see actually more temples and monasteries than even in Hindu cultures, because of this concept that the reward is going to be in your next life, through merits for contributing to that. And you see a lot of monks too, compared to the number of sages in Hinduism. So Mahayana Buddhism, however, said, well, there has to be a way for ordinary people also to achieve this nirvana, or at least some kind of Buddhahood. So they developed a different idea of Buddhahood. We'll skip this part. So, like looking at monks, the difference between their lifestyle. So the monks have to follow all these 10 laws. Okay. So now again, look at this. You see very similar to the 10 commandments. Okay. That follow all 10 of them. So don't take any life. So non-violence. Don't murder. Don't commit sexual adultery. No adultery from 10 commandments. Don't use intoxicants. Something new there. Avoid entertainments. That's for monk. Okay, let me follow the order. Okay, don't steal. Okay, that's from 10 commandments. Don't lie from 10 commandments. Okay, don't use intoxicants, a different one. Don't eat too much. See the Wu Wei principle. Avoid entertainments. Don't use makeup. Don't use luxury beds. Don't use gold or silver. These are all for monks. Okay, so for monks, all these 10. Okay, but for ordinary people, only the first 5. Okay, so I'm trying to, run faster. So okay, so in Mahayana Buddhism, the other group, that told, we had to find a way or solution for ordinary people to also to achieve this kind of nirvana. So they said, there are actually different kinds of Buddhas. So they developed this idea of 3 types of Buddhas. I'm on point F now. So the first one is called Manushi Buddhas, Dhyani Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas. Okay. So they said all living beings, whether it is human beings or non-human beings, are eligible of Buddhahood. Okay. Or one type, one of those, if not all. So then, from this, they later on had other branches that developed in different parts of the world, like Zen Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism. Tibetan Buddhism also is known as Vajrayana. They have the concept of lamas. You might have heard of Dalai Lama and things like that, especially when you watch Western movies now on Buddhism. It's basically Tibetan focus because of the conquer of Tibet by China, and then the escape of Dalai Lama to India, where they have a kingdom in exile. That's what they say. So the concept of Lama itself is kind of very unique, because Lamas are a special born people. Okay, they don't become Lamas; they are born Lamas. They are special. There is something unique about them right from their birth. Okay, so what does that do with Buddhism? So that's why I said, Buddhism has changed a lot from what Buddha actually taught initially, as it spread to different countries. A lot of syncretic ideas and movements as it went to different places. So talking about these different kinds of Buddhas, the first one, Manushi Buddhas. These are the Buddhas, those who came into the world, lived their lives, and disappeared into nirvana. So I told you, Buddha was, he claimed he was one of the Buddhas, Gautama Buddha, the historical Buddha. He was just one of them. There are many others. So these are the people who disappeared. They are no longer available for people. Okay, you can venerate them, you can respect them, you can bow down them and all, but help is not available from them because they are not having any attachment. Then there are Dhyani Buddhas or transcendental Buddhas in heaven. So now you are talking about the concept of heaven. See, these are all syncretic ideas that came up later on, right? It's not taught by Buddha himself. These are later developments. So these are the ones who attained enlightenment in heaven. So your concept of heaven now, a place now, and are available to humans on the earth to help in life and spiritual journey. So since Buddha is not available, Buddha's principles can help you, but then these other ones, the Dhyani Buddhas also can help you. And then they have a concept of Bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas are Buddhas in making. So you are in the progress. So anyone can be a Bodhisattva in the sense of growing towards this desire to achieve that final nirvana. So they are in the progress. Just like we speak about sanctification in Christianity, right? We look forward to that final sanctification. It's an ongoing process. So they believe in this Buddhas in making. So ultimate goal, of course, is cease to exist, right? You don't come back to this world again. If you're coming by, you're going to suffer, okay? So life is bad. Life is not good. We are trying to somehow survive here with medicines and, virus, antivirus, shots and things like that. Man, this is bad. Life is bad. Try to get away from this. That's the goal. So how do you do that? By achieving nirvana, attaining nirvana, the status of having no attachment or desire, or hence set free from the karma cycle and the birth that results from it. So some perplexing aspects of Buddhism. like I said, the syncretic movements in different parts of the world, as it went to Tibet and China and Japan, all kinds of Buddhism now. You have this concept. If you go to, Bhutan and Tibet, you will see their Buddhist monasteries. If you walk in, on the walls, on the roof, you will see pictures, thousands of pictures. Okay, it's artwork everywhere. You will see demons, dragons, and all kinds of spiritual beings that you cannot imagine in different shapes and everything. Weird things. I mean, crazy things. Okay, it doesn't have anything to do with actual Buddhism or Buddha at all. Right? Someone actually asked me, if Buddha actually taught poetism, where you eat only what is necessary and eat by begging, why is so fat? I'm talking about the Chinese laughing Buddha now, okay, which has nothing to do with Buddhism, right? So I said, well, you Google like the picture of actual Gautam Buddha, he was actually very fit, actually. I mean, at least in the picture, he looks very fit. So the Tibetan Buddhism is crazy. I mean, his stories of dragons and evil spirits and all kinds of stuff. So, however, as it began, it borrowed from the Vedic teachings, in which Buddha actually grew up. The teachings of karma and rebirth is from Hinduism, is from Vedic teachings. But he didn't say anything about God, so it's a non-priestly, non-God religion, atheistic religion. Okay. Something interesting about Jubas. Have you heard that term or phrase? The term, right? Jubas. It's a new one. Okay. Now here is the thing. Think about what happened to Jewish religion. As they lost the temple, there's no more priests. Do you know that there's no more priests in Judaism? They have only rabbis now. They have no priests. They have no temple. Remember, they had one temple that is destroyed. No more temple. So they became, by force, they became non-priestly and non-sacrificial, right? So most of them also lost faith in the course of time because they were hoping for Messiah. For them, Messiah hasn't come. So finally, they have suffered so much and said, we are talking about another 2,000 years after the coming of Christ. What is this hope now? Useless, right? So they have lost hope in God, in that Messiah, and they have lost faith in God. Many Jews have become atheistic. And for them, the Buddhist principle, we are not talking about all this syncretic Buddhism, but the Buddhism that's taught by Buddha, about suffering and how to get away from suffering and those kind of meditation and yoga and all sound very attractive to them. No God is in picture. So many of them are becoming Buddhist, and they are called Jubus. Okay, Jubus. Just Google and read, you'll find some interesting stuff. So there's kind of this, connection about this non-priestly, non-sacrificial system, which is interesting for us to think about. Okay, think about this. The Jews are going to build the temple back, right? Temple again, right? So what is going to happen? Are they going to bring the priest back? Are they going to bring the sacrificial system back? Which will be more like a regression in religious thought, because most religions are becoming non-priestly, non-sacrificial. And we see it going back if they do that, which according to prophecy is going to happen. So now engaging Buddhists, how do we communicate to Buddhists, right? Focus on the implication to the society. I told you, keep that question in mind. We'll come back to that. What's your name, brother?
Robert?
Robert. You asked that question about what happens if everybody is monk, right? Mm-hmm. So I had actually a friend who is actually a university professor in US. He's a Buddhist, American, Caucasian Buddhist. He got married to actually, I came to know him only through another friend of mine. So he got married to one of my mentor's daughter. The mentor is Christian, the daughter married him. And he was very concerned. So since I come from India, he used to openly share about this to me. And I told him one thing she needs to worry about is if he becomes a real Buddhist. Because if a real Buddhist, what happens? No more attachments, no more family. He's going to leave her. And that happened, right? So, not only about monk, everybody becomes monk and nobody working. What if everybody becomes, everybody decides his or her family to achieve nirvana? Because you're not supposed to have any attachment. We will have orphans and widows and widowers and all kinds of problems in society. Basically, if you follow Buddhism to its core, you will have a society that will collapse. A society there will be no more rebels, no more families, which is the fundamental fact of any society. So, so it's not just food. Okay, it's more than that. That's why I said we'll come back to that. So yes, please.
So are there lots of instances of men leaving their families, like Buddhist men leaving their families?
To be frank, you will not. You will not see it happening in a large number, but you will see a lot of the happening, and this is true of Hinduism too. Okay, the life. Those of us who come from India know this. The pressure of life, especially on people who are at the lower level in India, is so high, and usually it's on men, and then it's on the first male child in the family who has to, if the father goes or dies or something gets sick, the first son has to take over the responsibility on his shoulder. So sometimes what happens is they get so fed up or frustrated, or become, come to a realization, I cannot handle this anymore, and they become a sage. They say, I'm going to become a Hindu monk. So that has happened, again, not in large numbers. So that we call the sannyasis. So they leave the society now, so they have now a spiritual explanation for that, and then they go and live in with these other sannyasi communities.
What about women and children? Are there several or any instances of moms or kids just like abandoning their families as well?
Well, yes, in Buddhism, but the case of women are less common.
Right.
But you actually see people taking their child at very young age and putting them in monasteries, so that they would, grow up without any desire and attachment and achieve nirvana as a monk, because you have to be a monk in that system, right? So if you go to these monasteries, you will see very young kids, are being there in the monasteries, and they have monasteries for girls also.
Interesting.
Yeah. So again, for them it's not wrong. You don't see it happening because that's not common. For common people leave their family, but you see them happening once in a while. And if they do that, there's nothing wrong in it. They're doing a good thing. It's like if you talk about Islam. If you are a real Muslim, you have to be involved in jihad, right? So there is nothing wrong. The nominal Muslims are the ones who are actually doing jihad. They are nominal, right? The real ones are the ones who do jihad. Understand? The real Buddhist, if you are a real Buddhist, if you are concentrating and continuing on that desire, you should be making progress, right? So at the end of your progress, there's a time when you have to detach from your family. So you are expected to do that. Whether you do it or not, that's a different thing. But if you are a good Buddhist, you should be doing that.
Wow.
The leader set the example of that, so.
Yes, and that's that's what I want to, and that's what is expected too, right? What did Buddha do? We follow Christ, right? As an example for us, right? So if a Buddhist follow Buddha, what do they do first? Your attachment is greatest. When you look at your attachment, they say it's greater for your family than anything else, right? Everything comes after family. So the greater ones you should live first, right? So. And then when you think about that desire, right? Now here is this. You are leaving your family, all the attachments, all desires you have, for what? For the desire of achieving nirvana, or ceasing to exist, right? So you have this greater desire for nirvana that you are trying to get rid of all other desires. So the focus on greatest of all desires while trying to get rid of all other desires, right? So you are actually having a contradictory move here, because why do you leave all these things you actually love, all these good things actually that's part of our life, right? You are leaving all these good things because you have a desire for escaping from this life, right? So focus on the historicity of Buddha. This is about reality again. When you talk about reality in Hinduism, there's a thought again that probably Buddha inherited. In Hinduism, there's a thought that there's a thought that everything is actually illusion. Everything is Maya. Nothing is real. It's all an extension of Brahman or God, right? So he kind of inherited that. So, and he taught the same thing. Nothing is in fact real in the long run, right? If nothing is real, Was Buddha wrong? The historical Buddha right? I mean, did he really live? Was he real? Second thing, is this world real? What he taught, are those principles real, or they also keep changing? Also, when we look at the problem, I told you, Buddhism and Jainism, both religions are built on this one issue, the problem of evil, problem of pain, problem of suffering. How do we respond? I mean, how do we see these religions responding? So here is I'm kind of summarizing this talk. We see Buddhism, first of all, responding to the problem of evil. Buddhism and Jainism are the same thing. Buddhism says suffering is universal, it's everywhere. If you are going to live, you are going to suffer. There's no escape. Jainism actually says something more. Actually, it is coming after Buddhism, right? Jainism said, if you exist, you are actually a cause of suffering. You're going to cause suffering. So if you look at Jain monks, they would actually wear a mask. We started wearing masks after COVID. They started wearing masks in 5th century BC. Why? Because you might accidentally swallow an insect and kill it. So they taught strict non-violence, and they said you shouldn't even accidentally kill anything. That's violence. And when you do violence, that's a bad karma. You are going to come back. Maybe as that insect in your next life, right? In this case.
So if they get like a cockroach infection in their temple, do they just move out?
I'm sorry?
If they get like a cockroach infestation in the temple, do they just move out?
Oh, he would actually, the founder of Jainism, he would actually sweep the floor before stepping. So like sweep, step, so that he wouldn't even step on a small insect on the floor. And Jains were not allowed to do agriculture, because when you do farming, what do? You do till the ground, right? When you till the ground, you kill the earthworm or even other insects. So Jains don't do farming, and they all got into business. All Jains are in business. They're all rich, super rich people in India now. So that's the other side of Jainism. So Jainism is again much smaller compared to Buddhism, but they're all super rich people. You have only maybe a few thousand Jains in US, but some universities have funds for Jain studies. Yes.
How did Jainism survive in ancient times if they didn't farm?
Business. They got into business right then, and that's why I said they are super rich.
So they were just trading and
It
stuff.
only
or
worked
is
because
that-
there were
So-
people of other religions.
So they were okay with
Yeah.
buying stuff that had been farmed. They just did not
They
want to farm
they
themselves.
Sell anything and everything, but
Doesn't that count as cooperation in the violence?
Yeah, they are complicit in profiting from the destruction, the murder of several innocent earthworms. How dare they?
Yeah.
Have they ever
And
watched?
they eat vegetables too, right? So vegetables are life. They didn't know that vegetables are life. So here is the Buddhism and Jainism. So suffering is all what is there. The goal is not to live. Okay, so life is bad. Hinduism, later on there was a Hindu philosopher named Shankara. He said, suffering is actually not there, because he wanted to defend Hinduism from the growth of Buddhism, and he said suffering is not real. This is Maya. This is illusion. So don't worry about it. But in Christianity, we believe, we teach that suffering is real, but there's a better option. This world is not normal. It has become abnormal, but we have a normal world that's waiting. There's a better hope. There's a future hope. So life is not all bad. There's some good things in life, and there's a better life in the future. So that's the end of the presentation. You ask some questions in between, but if there's anything, we have a few minutes, right?
Yeah, we have a lot of time actually.
Yeah.
15.
Congratulations on being the first reasonable faith guest ever to finish on time.
Yes.
Well, that means I did finish on time last time.
If Buddhism is so atheistic and doesn't talk about any kind of God or anything, what is mediating? What out there is actually mediating the cycle of rebirth, and what karma you get, and where you're reborn, and when you're worthy to reach nirvana? What's deciding that?
Yeah, like I said, this is not happening, independently in India. It's happening in China also. This non-God movement, right? Where you have certain principles that, for example, Confucianism, which you all had, right? Not talk about God at all. Okay? These are all philosophies of life, principles of life, right? So Buddha, I think you mentioned about Gnosticism, right?
Yeah.
Okay, in Gnosticism, when you receive knowledge, is given, right? There's a God giving that. There's a light up there, the higher light, we even use the word light for God too, right? So that light gives light to some people in this world. But in Buddhism, when you talk about the enlightenment that Buddha received, we are not talking about, someone giving it to him. Okay? Buddha doesn't say it was given to him. It is something like he discovered from within through meditation. That's why they meditate. So what do Buddhists meditate on? They don't meditate on other than the principles that was taught by Buddha. There's no God to meditate or anything like that. They just meditate on almost nothing like within you. You focus on you only, right? So it's from within. It's not given. So there is no God in picture who gives a revelation. So it's not a revelation. He didn't claim he had revelation. It's an enlightenment. For example, when Isaac Newton asked this question, why is the apple falling down? Right? So he came up with an answer within himself, right? He didn't get the answer from outside of himself. Someone didn't give him the answer, right? He discovered in the same way. Buddha kind of discovered this principle. It was not given to him according to Buddhist teaching. So same is true of Jainism too. We see actually, Mahavira, who is the founder of Jainism, claiming the same thing. He also, receives enlightenment, not revelation. So there is no God in picture. There is no God even controlling karma. So there's karma is like a principle, it's like the law of gravity. If you go up on the top of the building and jump down, you're going to suffer, right? That's the law. So karma is like that. It's a natural law, natural principle. You are going to reap, what you have. So, yeah, for some people, it's difficult to understand. How can there be a karma, someone who is controlling all these rebirth principles and things like that? But for them, it's okay. Yes. First, yeah. So, yeah.
I know that Western iterations of Buddhism and similar religions to it, they're highly westernized. They bear little resemblance to the real faith. But, in areas in liberal societies where people actually choose to become Buddhists, what are the main reasons that people would say as why that was attractive to them?
Like I said, a couple of reasons. One could be the disappointment or loss of hope and faith in a God. So they're looking for a system where God is not involved. Like in the case of Jews, like the Jews, one main reason is they want a system that has no God in picture. Right? And then they're looking for some peace, mental balance and things like that, which even yoga, meditation, these are helpful for your mind and body, right? We read about meditation in the Bible too. Of course, we meditate on something, not on nothing. That's the difference. But they help. So when they find these are helpful, that looks those things look attractive. Yes.
So I think one thing I noticed here is that even among the Eastern, like the Eastern religions, Buddhism is probably the most atheistic, even more so than Confucianism and Taoism, because Confucianism at least talks about, because Confucianism and Taoism both talk about ultimate ordering principle, about some entity which is an ultimate ordering principle, whereas Buddhism doesn't even have that.
Yeah, and later Taoism of course came up with temples and gods and deities and things like that. But in Confucius talks himself, in his own teaching, we don't see much about God. But yes, Jainism is Buddhism is not like non-theistic. Jainism is actually even more non-theistic, like totally nothing about God.
Because in Confucianism you have this thing called Tian, which is like heaven. Order.
Dian is the god, the god of Taoism, the main god of Taoism. So,
And in translations of the Bible into Chinese, or the Greek word logos, which we translate as word in the beginning of the Gospel of John, is translated as Tao, which is the same concept of Taoism.
Yeah, Tao and Tao is same thing.
Yeah.
Spelling is different.
Yeah.
So Yeah, that's why he said, we see connection, at least ideas being going like cross-cultural, cross-country, and there's no way you can, like I told you, the Ten Commandments, which is much
Yeah.
before this, even that's there. So people had access to these ideologies that existed in different parts of the world because of trade routes and trade and things like that. So,
Yeah.
uh,
I would
yeah,
like
I- yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I would like to offer a counterpoint. Buddhism doesn't seem to confirm or deny the existence of God. I've met a lot of Buddhists who also practice another faith.
Yeah.
And it is possible because it doesn't confirm or deny God, it's more of a lifestyle. The idea is to cut off all
Yeah.
attachments.
Mm.
But you can still believe in God, you can just choose not to follow God, is more of what it seems to be, which I found to be a little counterintuitive, but to each their own. But I have met Buddhists who do practice another religion.
But I guess technically.
That's what that's why I was telling you, Jews now practice Buddhism. They're now Jews also. They're Buddhists also, and also like that's something. Yeah. And you see, like when we talk about Buddhism, we are talking of Buddha's teachings. It's in Buddha's teachings we don't see anything about God. It's in Mahavira's teaching we don't see anything about God. But as I said, when it goes to different countries, there's syncretic movements. Now, when you have belief in dragons and spirits and all, in Bhutan, they have this, concept of thousands of spirits and things like that, right? And then there are special healers and all kinds of things. Are we talking about some god behind them then? Of course, that's concept of this higher degrees and, final gods and things like that. So it depends on whom you're talking about, what kind of Buddhism you're talking about. But it's in the actual teachings of Buddhism, like when we talk about the principles, how to get nirvana and all, God is not involved. Like I said again, remember when I talked about the Jnani Buddhas that are in heaven, well, now you have a concept of heaven. What is heaven? Now you're talking about God and, these Buddhas are there helping and all. So if you talk to those kind of Buddhists, of course, they'll have an idea of God. Good.
I have a question. Do people who follow Buddhism and Jainism have any theory about how the world came to be?
Well, remember I told you nothing is permanent according to Buddhism and Jainism. They both believe that this universe is, kind of on its own. This is going to get destroyed. See, they believe in rebirth. So rebirth is not only for us, living beings, rebirth is for everything. So this world will end one day, there will be a new world again. That will end one day, there will be another new world again.
So it's more like nebula, it just kind of is, will be, was, not a
So just like we have rebirth, this universe has rebirth too.
So, at some point, I kind of had this impression that Buddhism and Platonism had a lot in common because strict Platonism strictly follow, what Plato teaches in the dialogue, or what quote unquote Socrates, probably not actually Socrates, teaches in the dialogues.
Yeah.
You do have similar concepts, like the things of this world are kind of inferior to some ultimate forms and reincarnation, just like in Buddhism.
Yeah.
But what? Never mind. But I noticed, Buddhism teaches nothing is permanent, whereas Platonism has the forms,
It's quite the
which
opposite.
are permanent.
Yeah,
Something.
again, like I said, we have to, we have to really see that ideas are being exchanged, cross-country, cross-cultural, cross-continent and all. So, in fact, when we talk about Jainism, in Jainism, they actually believe your soul is eternal. So there is something that is eternal. Your soul never gets buried, right?
Yeah.
So the soul comes to this world, if you have attachment, it comes back again. If you achieve nirvana, it escapes forever. But the soul actually exists forever. So there is that permanence in that sense. Whereas in Buddhism, it's a non-existence, an existence and non-existence.
How would a Buddhist respond to arguments for the existence of something like the forms, or so because basically Buddhists seem to just be I don't know, their idea of impermanence is essentially some kind of anti-realist. It's like you mentioned there are strains of Buddhism that say that nothing is really real. And I think statements about impermanence end up tending into that.
Well, we are talking about reality now, right?
Yeah.
Again, like I said, it comes from Hinduism because in Vedic teaching there is this teaching that reality, absolute reality is only one. All other realities we see are illusions, right? So if absolute reality is only one, that means that we are talking of God now, of God. That, He's the only one reality. Everything is, we call dependent realities. Like even in Christianity, we believe we are all dependent realities. Right? Our existence is dependent on God. Now, if that's the case, if you philosophically ask how many realities are there, or how many absolute realities, there's only one. Right? So, in Buddhism, since they don't talk about God, they would say, all what is there is this karma principle. We have the souls that are coming back and disappearing. The Buddhas are in existence and non-existence. The universe will, somehow the universe come into existence. They don't explain again how it comes into existence. There's no God in picture, but they don't really talk about, like, no one really asked in those days who creates God or the universe or how it comes to existence.
Because they believe in impermanent. Well, in the impermanence of things. How it's like, I would assume that because for example 2 + 2 = 4, that's permanent, I think.
Depends who you ask now.
I agree.
What?
I said depends who you ask now.
Let's see what the product is.
Let's see, because that's 2 + 2 = 4 seems like something permanent. It seems like something that would be permanent.
Mathematics laws have to be true in all kinds of world all time, right?
Right.
But here's the thing. For if you talk to him, same thing. If you talk to a Hindu, like I said, this happening in Hindu culture, right?
Yeah.
So that happens only when you have to, right? Now you are able to say 2 + 2 = 4 because you live in a world, you see different realities, and you are able to count and see. If there is nothing, what will you count to make it a 2? Because there is only one absolute reality. So they believe there is a different kind of existence or truth level. So Shankara, who actually addressed these kind of questions, we are talking about now 8th century AD, okay, much later on. So Shankara, when he addressed these kind of issues of reality and illusion and all, his response was, there were some questions that he couldn't answer like this, right? So his response was, well, there are 2 levels of knowledge, a lower level and a higher level, okay? And you are in the lower level, that's why you're asking those questions. When you get
I don't need
in Hinduism is called para level, okay? Para level and apara level, okay? The lower level and apara level is the upper level, okay? So when you get to that level, when you understand that you are not real, you are part of Brahman, you don't ask those questions anymore because there is no 2, there's only you.
Wow.
So I mean, see, you have one question there. We are talking about contradictions now and logic and things like that. So that's why
What makes a red pen different from a green pen? Does that not constitute 2 different things?
There's no pen.
You will see logical
It's just
problems. Yeah, you will see logical problems with like I said, having a greater desire to achieve nirvana and then leaving your family and all other desires for that. That's contradictory. So you will, and the definition of nirvana itself is nothing, at the same time is something. So do you see logical problems and contradictions? And somehow for Eastern mind, that is not an issue.
So they need to be Buddhist if you need to negate all attachment to the world. What prevents them from just doing whatever they want? Is it the thought of nirvana and karma and earning that merit?
Yeah, if you do bad things, of course you have bad karma, and you are going to pay for that in your this life or next life. So that's why there are those principles of living right and only doing what is necessary. So right action, right thing. So yeah, you have to do a right thing. It's a very ethical religion in that sense.
How do they know what exactly is right and wrong?
The right view. Remember, the first one was having the right view, right? So the right view is believing those things taught by Buddha. So when you believe that, that's when you know what is right. So right things are doing right thing, right action, not doing those things prevented, and doing that things that are told, doing only what is necessary. You don't eat too much. Even if you have, you eat only what is necessary. Right? Things like that.
Is the right view one the same kind of like words from earlier, or is it the
No,
Noble
there were
Path?
4 principles, the 4 universal truths. So when you believe this, that's your view that's your worldview. This becomes your worldview now, the Buddhist worldview. That view is the right view. And then you follow these paths. How do you know the right and well? This tells you what is right and wrong. And then if you need more explanation, you have these 10 commandments. That tells you what is right and wrong.
So these are basically the formulas of Buddhism.
Yeah.
Just like
Well, good.
We ended on time even,
Yeah.
barely.
Yeah.
So, great job.
All
Very
right.
knowledgeable about all this, Raj. That's great stuff.
Still trying to get sound